Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Your words, O Lord, give joy to my heart. Hallelujah. Your teaching is light to my eyes. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
My friends, the Lord be with you. This is a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, Lord. At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they all saw this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor. And if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today, salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost." My friends, the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Up until this week, you did not know that I am clairvoyant. Full of baloney, yes, you knew that, but you didn't know that I could see into the future. Last week, when I talked about Archbishop Burke from St. Louis wanting to refuse communion to John Kerry back in 2004, I had no idea that a priest in South Carolina actually did that to Joe Biden. His name is Father Maury, and I would imagine his email box is pretty full right about now. They say Erie County is going to be at the center of next year's election. If one of these candidates decides to come here while they're in town, I think I'm going to request another hernia surgery the day before Mass. Whether I need one or not, I'm not going to be around here for that. No. I mean, one tweet, I was on the front page, so I'm not going to get into that again. And I'm not going to get into that whole thing again, because I said my piece about that last Sunday. If you missed the homily, it's on the website, it's on YouTube. I'm mentioning this today at the beginning of Vocation Awareness Week because that church in Florence, South Carolina, St. Anthony's, that Joe Biden will never step foot in ever again, that was the church that my seminary classmate had his first Mass. It's a small world. It's a beautiful church, by the way, too. And I want to tell you about him, my classmate, for he was such an inspiration to me so many years ago. Father Bill Maley. Bill died in 2000, and I don't believe a day has gone by that I haven't thought of him since. He had a massive heart attack and died very suddenly. We were the best of friends, and his death was devastating at that time, but his life was fascinating. When we met at St. Vincent's Seminary in Latrobe in 1983 in August, I had just turned 21 years old the month before. I graduated from college that May, so my path to the seminary was pretty standard, high school, college, seminary. Bill was 41 years old, 20 years older. He had been an executive at Westinghouse in Pittsburgh and gave up a $60,000 job, $60,000 in 1983 to become a priest. And part of his job back then was he was throwing the company parties and for the clients and all the hoo-haws in Westinghouse. He spent 10 years of his career living in Manhattan in the 60s. He had been engaged twice. Now, Bill had been in school for 20 years when we went to St. Vincent's, and he pulled off a 3.3 GPA. His life history was fascinating, and much of it wasn't the least bit sacred, especially the years in New York. Trust me when I tell you that. He had a dream job and what appeared to be a dream life for the 1980s. Gave it all up. We finished seminary, and I went on to be ordained. Bill didn't yet. Bill went back into business, and he took a position with a company in Greenville, South Carolina. But he went back into the seminary in the early 90s and was ordained for the Diocese of Charleston in 1995 with his first Mass of St. Anthony's at the age of 53. And he considered St. Anthony's to be his home parish. And because of the fewer priests that they have in that diocese, he became a pastor very quickly, and his people loved him. He had only a 5-year priesthood, but he was such an inspiration to them. And I went down there and I saw it with my own eyes. Bill was an unconventional seminarian, to be sure. He had a background that would put your hair on fire, but putting aside the huge amounts of money, the 2 engagements, the dream job, and everything else, he heard God call him to serve. What inspired me the most, especially being in my 20s, in the 80s, Bill said yes. Yes. I honestly didn't think he would make it. And when he didn't go on, I wasn't surprised. But he did, and they loved him. Amazing things happen when we can put aside the world, listen to the voice of God, and follow his path. People's lives are influenced. Jericho is an oasis city in the Jordan Valley, only a few miles from the northern end of the Dead Sea. And it is in Jericho that the Roman road begins, the mountainous climb to Jerusalem. And it was going to be quite a journey. But once Jesus and all of his travelers get to Jerusalem, then his passion begins. So in the passage right before this one, as he's about to enter Jericho, Jesus heals a man that was born blind, telling him that his faith has saved him. The blind man had called out to him, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." He called him Son of David. That blind man knew that Jesus was the Messiah, for the Messiah would come from the line of King David. His faith was that strong, living in darkness his whole life. And when he saw the light and saw the face of Jesus for the first time, Luke says, he immediately followed him. Meaning, the blind man then made that exhausting journey to Jerusalem with Jesus. Well, now in Jericho, this little tax collector Zacchaeus may never have seen Jesus before either, but had heard about him, and he wanted to be near him as best he could. Luke mentions 2 things that are very, very important. That Zacchaeus was short, and that he climbed a sycamore tree. Well, a sycamore tree, it's a very tall tree, and one without any branches close to the ground. So Zacchaeus had to truly struggle to get up that high in order to see Jesus. But he did it. He did it because he knew that this Jesus was different. He was special. Jesus had whatever Zacchaeus had longed for: peace and forgiveness, for he knew he needed to change his life. The Christ had come, and the Christ had entered his own house. This long-time wealthy sinner was hosting the Messiah, Son of God, who told him, "Today salvation has come to this house, your house." Now keep in mind, 3 years had passed. They all knew who Jesus was, especially the crowd that made that treacherous, exhausting journey from Jericho, 800 feet below sea level, to Jerusalem, which was 3,300 feet above it. But that man, he knew who Jesus really was. The ones who really had faith, true, real, deep faith in this Jesus they had never seen, the man born blind, and the short, wealthy tax collector. They knew Jesus. And they allowed their lives to change because of their faith before his death and resurrection. They changed their lives before the cross. Can you imagine what their life was like, that their faith was like after the resurrection? Well, the others were murmuring. These two were glorifying God, and their new lives were living proof of that. It never ceases to amaze me who enters my life and teaches me about being a faithful disciple, teaches me about listening to the voice and the will of God, teaches me about hanging on to faith no matter how bad life can get. I don't think Father Bill realized how influential he really was because he was so unconventional. He was a powerful influence, and he had a wild background, but he had a very simple faith. Again and again and again, don't sell yourselves short. If you and I can truly put aside the world and listen to the voice of Jesus and follow the direction that he wants us to, someone is going to notice. Someone is going to be inspired, and someone is going to follow the Lord too. That is our vocation. That is what we are called to do. And that is how we get to the glory of God. I wish you all God's peace.